Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, now I see that recording started. Okay, let's start. Hello, Liselotte. My great pleasure to have you on my channel.
Thank you for inviting.
Liselotte, please give us the answer on the first question, please. Now scientists are talking about info epidemic, and last July World Health Organization held a conference about info hysteria. Tell us please, how can laymen understand information, flow of information about COVID-19 and distinguish true information from untruth information?
I think as a futurist, that's a quite fantastic, a very good question, because what it means is that we have gone from a period of time where there was a lot of fake news to the real old-fashioned scientist is going back into fashion, because they might not be so interesting to listen at the media, but they actually know what they're talking about. So for once, we actually started not looking so much at influencers, but more at proper CVs and people who stick to their guns in order to talk in statistical terms, and who are having some proven competence in the field. So you could say COVID-19 in some ways has been a way to get scientists back on track and to get them famous again. I think Fauci in the States is a great example of that. Even though he was advisor to Trump, he held his guns and held on to staying in the scientific base. And I think that's getting increasingly important to people, because there are so many stories around, and there are so many different nations having different viewpoints as to what works and what doesn't. That said, even scientists are not agreeing, so we have a trouble there.
Excellent. Liselotte, the coronavirus pandemic, what changes will we have around the globe?
We are changing everything due to the pandemic. I mean, especially digitalization has been exploding because people can work on tech at home. More people are now working hybrid. They're not forced to use the offices again. That's going to change forever. Also, the way we have been fighting to find a vaccine in a hurry has demanded that people tap into a global brain of knowledge. We have started tracking people a lot more, so I can listen to your voice and find out whether you have COVID-19, but I can also look at whether you are developing other diseases, or that if you're speaking to your wife, I can see if you're about to get a divorce, even though I can't hear your voice. So that kind of pattern recognition, artificial intelligence, that has exploded, because now everybody can see the advantage of finding out in terms of our health. So we don't bother so much about privacy, and also a lot of businesses see the investment potential. So that's huge. Finally, I think we are moving into an era where age matters. For a long time you said, oh, age is just a number, young people can go on the same travel as the old people, but suddenly, age really matters. It's the young people who have to pay for the rebuilding, the restructuring of society. They are the one who will feel the environmental situation, and then they will have to carry that huge debt on their shoulder. They haven't had the opportunity to enter the labor market. On the other hand, you have the elderly generation who are certainly fearful of their health, who feel much more vulnerable in mingling, in traveling to uncertain places. We're also seeing a lot of nationalism occurring due to this pandemic. Right now, we are all competing who will be able to vaccinate its citizens first, and Denmark being a part of the European Union, suddenly you can really sense that we had the Brexit, who is the UK are producing some vaccines. Are we not accessing those anymore? Where is the solidarity? And here on the long run, I think we'll start having more holistic measurements, again, using the global brain, saying, hey guys, if we don't make sure that everybody's getting the vaccine, you know, it's going to hit us like a boomerang. We might as well not do it, because you will have immune variations coming back like a boomerang. So better be careful that you have the right targets.
Liselotte, how serious are current shocks in the world?
They are very serious because we are looking at a financial system which has gone completely detached from the real world. We are indebting ourselves like never before, and so the whole notions of values are transforming. It's all moving into the cloud, into the cyber space of expectations, rather in the real world. And then we have this huge emphasis on health, but not really having these holistic measurements on who's actually suffering, what will be the good investments. I think we will look back at COVID-19 and we'll have a lot of lessons from that period in time.
Liselotte, in your opinion, who will win and who will lose after the pandemic?
Well, I actually think the pandemic might be accelerating the development for certain countries that had a lot of young people, like India, who have 6% of young people, compared to Europe, who have like 20%. So it might actually open some windows for other countries to develop momentum and do some development, and maybe even skip some developments and move straight into this new digitized world, both because they are not so worried about their privacy, and also because they have the education access now with the 5Gs and 6Gs that will cover the whole surface of the world. And then we look at China. China is definitely coming out as a clear winner, because basically, again, they have the focus on artificial intelligence. They don't have problems closing down. I think and some other regions that will come really strong out from it is like New Zealand and Australia, and that's because they are islands, so they can basically close off the borders and they can stay healthy and safe. I don't know if that will create a mental health, but at least physical health will. There will be winners on that part. Basically, they have completely deleted COVID-19 as it is.
Liselotte, which country has the most effective anti-COVID measures?
Well, we used to look at places like Taiwan, and I guess it's countries that has the most digitized populations, where it's really easy to monitor everybody at all points in time, that you have real-time testing, you have real-time data. And it seems with mutations and so forth, that might be the way forward to get a new normal. Again, I'm a futurist, I'm not an expert in viruses, but it seems that being ready to deal with any emerging viruses, it's going to be very much like we did after terror. You know, you are terror prepared, and you will be virus prepared in this future. And here for sure it's easier to control, but it's also easier to control in countries where people are fairly wealthy, so you can isolate them from one another. That is very hard if you have some poor ghettos where it's actually completely impossible.
Liselotte, what future holds for the countries which supply migrants, labor forces?
Well, right now it's a crisis, because everybody has been sent back and sent home, and we go from basically exporting work. We try to next shore. We want to have our own production facilities. That said, we will need skilled labor everywhere, and I think one thing that will really help labor forces from around the globe is the fact that we now get this hybrid working forms. So you don't actually have to be close to your production facilities. We have really taught every business that maybe 3 days out of 5 you can work from wherever you like, when you like, and that is going to loosen up the talent pool a lot. So we'll get much more flexible in terms of having different employers, and maybe we won't think so much about the nation state anymore, but more about where can we get the most innovative, interesting development path, and open up far more to communicate. That helps with Google Translate and the ability to easily transcend cultural barriers as well.
Liselotte, so again, who will take an advantage of the crisis and who can replace local elites?
I think it's young and hungry ones who are forced to take advantage of the crisis, because basically they haven't been able to onboard the existing businesses. And I think we will see this group who are organizing themselves online, creating their own trade unions, creating their own agreements and rules, and who are helping each other, but not working for a specific organization. And I think they will do that because democratically they have no voice, because it's all the elderly folks sitting on politics. So they are basically inventing a completely new hybrid work form. And I think they will find new ways of creating value and work-life balances that we have never seen before. So we're going to look back and think, God, the business was so old-fashioned structured back then. It's going to be far more mobile. It's going to be far more at looking at what issues are there and very quickly trying to figure out, so what will we do about them. And I think the silos that we have today within the labor market is going to open up a little bit as well. It's going to be, so we need a part of work that is practical, we need a part of work that is academic, but these silos where we split them, that's going to be so old-fashioned too. And so if we have this saying in Denmark that naked woman learns a woman to spin or sew clothes, and it's a little bit the situation here. We have a young generation who will be desperate in finding their own platform. And I think this critical mass and the fact that they communicate as they do, both in the gamer community, also what we've just seen with the GameStop investment going against Wall Street, we have just seen the beginning of this kind of organizations and happenings.
Liselotte, will COVID-19 change the map of populists and religious regimes?
Again, it has forced a lot of people to work online and to use social media's platform to communicate, which makes it easier and more intuitive to start also voicing your disagreement with the current regime. So you will have underlying waves. That's one scenario, but the other scenario is that we also have a lot of state supervision, a lot of state surveying, which can really kill any movement as soon as they even think about it. We won't, within the next 5 years, we can read brain waves, so we can actually know exactly what people are thinking and what they are reacting to. And so if governments really want to suppress people, unfortunately, their abilities have improved as well. So you can say COVID-19 has just opened up for a lot of new technologies which can be abused or used, but that's up to people.
Liselotte, because of COVID-19 and unstable economic situation, people have anxiety, continuing stress, depression. It can be replaced by adaptation.
It will be replaced by a different peace with yourself. If you like, you have to find a new way. You have to find out that you have to live with new rules applying. But as a futurist, I actually think it's healthy that we have turned off the automatic pilot and people have a think. as to how do I want to contribute with value into this society? How much do I really need to move around? What is important to me? So it has given rise to a lot of very important questions that we should all stop and think about at certain intervals. So I think going back, we will see a boom of creativity, of new ways of sorting out our life. And so in that sense, I think it has been like everybody were in a hamster wheel running faster and faster, and they didn't seem to be able to change direction. I think people are now forced to ask whether their direction is okay, and also to change it if it isn't. So yeah, probably we will see. Oh, and another thing is that instead of having these global reactions that we had before, all countries were looking more and more the same because everybody had similar experience. When you walk down the street, it was the same high street shops you would see. You saw the same advertising. Suddenly we had the microclimate of small bubbles, of small groups of people that you were talking to. You have your own local neighborhood, this local patriotism where suddenly your neighbors and your local forest or your local walks get more important to you. And that's going to be very interesting to see. So in that sense, we'll see this biodiversity of different ways of coping. And it will also be interesting because some people, yes, they have gotten very lonely. Other people have actually had their first corona dog, and they have started using nature, and they have started, spending time with their close friends, talking to them. So I'm sure we will also look back at this time and be a little sentimental. And do remember back then when we were in the Corona war, we had time to have a proper cup of tea. We had time to have a conversation like we two are having right now. It's only happening due to COVID. Otherwise, I would be in a plane somewhere and you will be running around somewhere else. So we are seeing some new, if you look at the global brain, we are seeing some new brain connections being established right now.
Liselotte, coronavirus pandemic given a lot of free time for a lot of people. Will people be able not to afraid of free time?
Actually, for me, this experience, because I live in a very wealthy country like Denmark, where we have social security and a lot of safety packages during Corona, and still people were very frustrated. Still people got anxiety. And for me, it's, the Piketty book where we should all have a minimum basic income. And if everybody just had a minimum basic income, the world would just be happy. For me, it has been such a nice real world experiment saying, hey, no, the idea is not to pacify people, to let them sit down and binge TV series and games and have nothing to do because the robots are coming. It's so important for us to be active, to feel that we can contribute to society, to feel that we are valuable to other people, and that we actually have something to deliver. And so this is not just a question of getting a basic income to people. It's really of activating the whole global workforce so people feel that there is a reason that they are on this planet and that they are needed. And I think that's just a very important part of human nature, which we forgot to talk about when it was just a matter of getting the bottom of the Maslow's needs hierarchy covered. So I think that is really something we will take with us from COVID-19, that the countries which will do well are actually the countries who are very good at activating people and making them participate. That's extremely important.
Liselotte, so COVID-19 accelerating coming of the future.
Again, oh sorry.
COVID? COVID-19 accelerating coming of the future.
Oh yeah, it's accelerating the future. Yeah, it is for sure. It has catapulted everybody into the future very fast, at least the digital future. But I've been working with, already in 2011, it was like the big stay-at-home for work day, and it never arrived. And so as futurists, we're like, when is it arriving? And in that sense, finally we are getting telemedication. Finally we have people taking care of their own health. So instead of it being hospitals helping you once you get ill, you have to take care of your own preventive measures. You get all these insights from data. Finally, we see we have to share data in order for data to become valuable. The educational system that has been so stifled, with these long lecture theaters and long lectures where nobody was listening. Suddenly we have adaptive learning, we have flipped classrooms finally occurring. The pharma industry understanding how they can use, quantum computing for creating new pharma at much faster rates than ever before. So in many ways, it has been hugely accelerating. And also the path towards feedback crisis and loneliness. Already before COVID-19, we had stopped really talking to each other, sending text messages instead. And now with the chatbots coming, they might be our future friend, which we will prefer talking to. So we also have these Skype shields on us at a much greater extent. So if anything, I think the coronavirus has somehow magnified development. So if we had troubles, the troubles have gotten worse. If people were on the brink to divorce, they are getting their divorce. And likewise, if you have a feedback crisis, it has gotten much worse. At the same time, the good things about it has gotten much better as well. We have really had an eye-opener. Why did we, sit in a plane for 2 hours to have 1 hour meeting with somebody I could just connect with like this with a click of a mouse? Yeah.
Great. Liselotte, in your point of view, when and how coronavirus pandemic will end?
I think we will, and I'm not a medical expert, but looking at the mutations, looking at the behavior, what we see right now, probably will have to live with some sort or the other of some kind of pandemic, because but we will be better at coping with it, we will be better at preventing, and we'll be better at isolating once we see it. So we will have a virus preparedness in our populations where we know how to handle it. That said, of course, there are certain regions in the world where it's going to be really, really hard because people live very closely together. But again, here we will have a personalized medication, technological warning telling us now we are getting near an infected area, and then take our measures. And also I think the pharma industry is going to speed up their trial and error, and will be much more acceptable maybe for experimenting more. And also we are looking into CRISPR, which is this new technology where you can do gene editing. So as a futurist, of course, I think we will move to some extent from curing diseases to getting diseases to disappear simply by cutting them out of our gene map. So and I think the new vaccines that are entering the market would be applied for that, also with cancer and diabetes. So it's going to be very interesting to see. What we won't accept is even old age. Old age is a disease. So we will not give up fighting for our well-being. It's a number one investment subject in Silicon Valley and everywhere else. So if anything, it has given us an increased focus on our health.
Liselotte, what's your message to people?
My message to people is, how do you activate yourself in society, and how do you activate other people around you? It might seem that everything has gone into a slumber, into a long winter sleep, but actually how can you use this situation to hurry fast by taking a step back, thinking about what sort of ancestors should we be in this world. So when the people coming after us, they will say, oh, we're so happy they had this shut down back in 21, you know. Once they opened their eyes again and went out on the street, they had a good thought about what to do and how to better create value for people and the planet.
Liselotte, it's my always great pleasure to have a conversation with you, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting.
Now I can turn off our recording.